Hello and welcome back to the home of the Ghost Owl, and Warhammer Community has now come out with another old world development diary. Now I do try and get to these as soon as I can. However, I do travel away with work quite a lot. Then I also have to record the video, edit it, and get it uploaded. So this isn't my full-time job, though I wish it was. Say my work does mean that I do have to travel abroad quite a bit, and it's quite hard. And I'm working on what I could do as a mobile solution, at least for news articles, for recording, editing a video on a laptop while I'm away and then getting it uploaded, though I am always restricted by the hotel Wi-Fi that I'm in. However, without further ado, let's see what they have to say. This is on the 24th of July, so this came out yesterday, and it says the more things change, the more they stay the same. Okay, right, so this is part of a series. They've been doing these development diaries looking at the development of the old world. They talk about Warhammer Fantasy Battle, reimagining the classic tabletop war game, okay, appeal to veterans and newcomers, okay, so they want to make it easily accessible, but with enough nostalgia that brings people like me back into the game. Okay. No goblin green bases, though. You know, look at that. No goblin green bases. I think one of the interesting things with this, and it is clearly set up for a photo, no movement trays. Okay, no movement trays in there. Okay. Right. So for several months, designers regularly assemble to play games. Okay. Of every edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. Now, we kind of knew already they were looking at previous game rules. So that's not really new. And it does say for several months. It doesn't say the last several months, so we don't know when this period is. And we know that they will withhold content to drip feed it. So that this could have actually been done a while ago, and they had this ready to go, but are just drip feeding it at this point to not flooded with content, particularly when they're doing like Warhammer 40k edition release and so on. But that's not really new. We knew that. Okay, so drawing battle lines. So is a game of massed combat, large armies form into regimented units. Okay, so the only thing I want to hopefully they get into this is that by the end of the 8th edition, the armies had become so large they become unwieldy. When you get like 60-man Skaven Slave or even 80-man Skaven Slave units, I kind of found the units got really big, and there's two issues with that. The amount of people that actually have good movement trays, that means that moving large ranks of troops around is easier, but most people didn't, and it was very time consuming. Not only that, with movement trays, it does become a challenge if you want to rechange your formation and so on. So there's that element, but the biggest one is the buying into the game. So it's how many models you needed to buy, and then time you needed to paint to get an army on the table for a standard size 2,000 point game, for example. So it'll be interesting to me when they say large armies, how many models you need to create. You know, is this a 2,000 point army? Is this 3,000 points? You know, it looks like there's quite a lot there. We got, what's that? We got 18 or so sword masters in here, got lots of cavalry. So it'll be interesting to see, are we going to go back to seeing these very large stacks of units? Or, if you go back to some of the really early editions, you had 5 cavalry, a unit of 10 would be quite large, something like that. 5 of the Elven Dragon Knights, or of Calador, or, archer units, maybe 20 for basic archer, basic troop unit 20, elite infantry units 10 to 15. So that will certainly be interesting to see where they go with that. The rules encourage players to field units of varying size based on their type and role. Yep, so as you've said there, depending on what they are, will depend on how big units are. Most importantly, formation units adopt how wide or deep they are. The formations units adopt are just as significant as where they're deployed or how quickly they advance. Okay, so formation is going to be important. So really, how many ranks, how wide, and with that, I guess you're going to be able to change that during the game. So there's obviously going to be some rules to change your formation. So for example, in the past, you might have had a unit of archers that were deployed very wide so they could fire in 2 ranks, and then if they were about to be charged and you needed to keep them on the board and you needed extra leadership for those extra ranks, you would reform before the charge, maybe if you couldn't get out of it or you wanted to slow down the enemy. So that could be interesting. Nothing majorly new to the rules. Encourage units with wide frontages, but the ideal number of models per rank is decided by the player, not enforced by the rules. Okay, I guess that's going to then depend upon how many models in the unit, but what benefits do you get for ranks? Because it says here, to do this, we've ensured as many models as possible can fight in combat, giving even those models that are within the fighting rank but not in base contact with the enemy opportunity to bring weapons to bear. So if you're looking at this unit of sword masters, they're probably pretty clear to see. So it's saying that even if you only had these 3 units in base contact, all 6 in that front rank could fight, for example. Okay, so that encourages a wide formation. But then you go, okay, so why don't I just make it 18 models wide? Well, I guess you can get charged by multiple units, but also what benefits are the multiple ranks? Are they going to give you leadership benefits, staying power, that sort of thing? So I guess, they're going to... It will be not bound by the rules in terms of how wide you can go, but it'll be bound by the playability and the benefits you get. Okay, but that's quite interesting. So now you don't have to be in base contact to fight. Okay, so that's interesting. Combined with the freedom to create and arm characters as you choose from a wide range of weapon options. Okay, so you get weapon options. We don't know how that's going to be. It says strategic choices when building their units and writing. Okay. So for a unit of basic infantry, yeah, you could have sword and shield. You could have spears. Spears in the past, you could fight in 2 ranks, 3 ranks. Shields give you the extra, you either re-roll save or a +1 to your save, something like that. There's no way to know right now if this is going to be an older version where you're going to pay a points increase to go to the different weapon options, or is this going to be an Age of Sigmar 40k 10th version where they try and create the rules that they're different enough, but they're the same points. So you just pay the points for a swordsman, Empire swordsman, let's say, and an Empire spearman is the same points, but the weapon gives you different benefits which you trade off. Don't know how that's going to play out. Very early days. So, but that's kind of what they're talking about here. Okay, nothing majorly new or groundbreaking there, I wouldn't say, except for the not having to be in base contact. Breaking the enemy. Okay, one thing we were keen on Warhammer the Old World was to represent the push and pull of battle, capturing a way in which hard-pressed army will succumb to fatigue and attrition. Okay. To achieve this, units that lose a round of combat will often give ground reluctantly rather than immediately breaking or fleeing, while the winner can press advantage. Okay. So when they start saying push and pull, that takes me right back to, I think it was like 3rd edition, where you could kind of push a unit. But the fact it says that you can pull as well means that maybe you can voluntarily give ground. So it looks like you can voluntarily retreat as well as be pushed back. Players will quickly learn how that cunning enemy will use this push-pull of battling units to lay traps. An advancing unit runs a risk of exposing a flank. Okay, so yeah, it gives me a feel of a bit of that 3rd edition push mechanic. So maybe you can push units back. Maybe you're like a monstrous infantry, or you're a bigger unit with a bigger mass. You can push people back. I hope that doesn't lead us back into these giant Death Star units. So I hope it's not mass based in terms of numbers of models, because we'll end up with like 2 units of 60 on the board, which are just not. I just didn't find that a fun game. So we'll see how that works, and the fact that you can voluntarily retreat, but you probably take some damage in doing so. Maybe you get free attacks as the attacker, maybe something like that. Okay, overall, I mean, some good words, but doesn't really tell us too much about how it's going to work, okay? Right, power of magic. Okay, magic's going to be important for me by the end of the 8th. Got frustrated with magic. Dwellers, purple suns, obliterating units, but that was kind of counteracting these giant Death Star units, so yeah, 8th was not a fun set of rules for me personally. Magic is integral to the game. Yes, it's absolutely critical. Untutored wizards. So that kind of, when we did our Empire faction video, College of Wizards hasn't been formed at this point. So untutored wizards, that tells me we're at this sort of hedge wizard style thing. Practicing strange laws of magic. Okay, so that's kind of what we said. Manipulating winds of magic and crafting spells. Okay. Right, okay, so that's kind of what we said in the previous video. To reflect this, spellcasting's been liberated and spread throughout the different phases of the game. So there's no magic phase, okay? So you're going to be casting magic in all throughout the different phases of the game. The movement phase, charge phase, shooting phase, combat phase. We've ensured that every spell available to a wizard can have a significant impact upon the battle if cast in the right place at the right time. So hopefully it's not just D6 mortal wound style things, and it's not giant purple suns obliterating units in one go. I guess that maybe they're going to be more tactical. Maybe buff debuff is going to be quite prevalent. Maybe leadership stuff in there as well. Sounds like it's going to be more tactical in that regard, buff debuff of stuff, as opposed to lots of direct damage. At least I hope that's the case. Situations where a single spell can decide the outcome of a battle are rare. Okay, so hopefully that means, Dwellers, Purple Suns are not going to be as damaging as they were before. The focus has shifted from keeping track of dice pools or hands of cards onto positioning of wizards. Okay, so hands of cards was the old energy cards, winds of magic. Then you had winds of magic, which you had a pool of dice, which you used. Okay, so does this mean that we're going to a sort of Age of Sigmar, Warhammer 40k 10th style of magic, which means they're just going to be abilities on the data sheet? Okay, so you're going to cast an ability. So that means that magic could be huge if you have lots of casters in your army, because you wouldn't be limited by a winds of magic unless they've all got the same spell, and you can only cast, it may be quite common that you can only cast one type of spell per turn. You can only cast buff a unit with the same spell once. That would be quite common, but you could put lots of different casters, lots of different spells, and not be limited by winds of magic. It would suggest that there's no irresistible force or miscasting, unless you miscast on a 1 when you roll to hit with that ability, or however that works. Don't know. Okay, I'm not 100% sure on that. It makes me wonder, how that's going to play out. I haven't played enough of 10th edition yet to see how it feels in 40k, and I haven't got into Age of Sigmar. I just couldn't get into the rule set to play it, so I have played it, but I wonder if it will dilute the feel of magic. That's the one thing that concerns me on this. It might just dilute the feel of being that big caster, and everyone's just kind of got these abilities, or just kind of you shoot with it and stuff. I don't know. This means players will have to plan ahead moving wizards. So it also suggests that wizards are probably not going to be attached to units. I wonder how they're going to do characters in units. Are they going to be attached or not? And it also suggests that the range on the spells is going to be quite short to me. You're not going to be casting halfway across the board. Okay. Okay. And to ensure they can counter the spells of enemy wizards. So there's definitely a counter mechanic. Okay. So somehow you're going to be able to counter wizard magic, which is interesting without dice pool. So we'll have to see how that pans out as well. Final thoughts then. Exciting game mechanics and many more besides. Okay. Yeah, nothing. So overall, what do I think about what's written here? Lots of words. doesn't really tell us too much. So in that, as much as we've put our what does it mean on it, it doesn't really mean anything. You don't know how the game plays. You don't know how the rules are actually going to play out. It's total guesswork at the moment, based upon some experience in the older editions. And obviously the new stuff with Age of Sigmar as well. So the only thing I would say is I wouldn't go off on one right now that this is a disaster or anything like that, because we don't know how it plays. So just take it as it is. Here's some news. These are some of the mechanics that will be in there. How might that look on the table? But I wouldn't suddenly go, oh, this game's going to be a disaster, or it's not going to be a disaster, because we, in reality, know nothing. And this tells us not very much at all. There's virtually no detail in this at all, other than what we've been able to bring out, i.e., if you look at some of the things that actually have come out of this, what do you actually know? Right, there's no magic phase, and you can cast magic in all different phases. We know that a whole rank... a whole front rank, for example, can fight even if it's not in base contact. We know there's the possibility of retreat, and there's some sort of push mechanic, and we know that formation is going to be key to how a unit performs, and what it does. So, there's some things in there, but you have to put it in context. And every time you get these little bitty news articles, there is zero context, right? You don't know. You think about the formation element, you have no idea how the movement phase works. So you've got to put it in that context before you judge if it's good or bad. So the biggest thing that concerns me at the moment is that, it's a game of massed combat, large armies. What constitutes a large army? And my biggest fear is the end of the 8th, where we go to these enormous armies with hundreds of models, and it's too much of a cost investment for people to get into it, and it's too much of a time investment for people to get painted armies, and that would be an absolute disaster and wouldn't represent the quality of the game at the end of it. So that would be a real shame. So I really hope we're not there. If you want to play something of that big, then they should have had a War Master resurgence. I definitely prefer the representation element of, if we're starting to see 60-man units and stuff, that's not going to be that. If I look at these aren't too bad. Some of them are quite big, but 20-man unit, a 5x4, or 6x5 even, or a 6x4 24, up to 30 with maybe some goblins and stuff as a maximum. But monstrous infantry, not too big. So that doesn't look too bad. That looks quite a lot, but that looks much bigger than a 2,000 point army that I would expect. And that unit in the middle looks massive. This is the kind of thing that I don't want to see, is units that are that big, because the cost of buying into that's going to be enormous. But there we go. That's my initial thoughts on the development diary that came out yesterday on the 24th of July 23. We still have no idea when the game's coming out. It doesn't feel to me like the rules are fully nailed down, as in written in stone. So it does lend me to think that, will it come out this year? You think by the time they finish the rules, they have to be written down, they have to go into a book, it has to be printed and published, and then it has to be shipped to all the locations it's going to be released at. That's a 6 to 9 month period, which makes putting it in this year, unless this is such an old article that it's way back, which it could be, we've no idea. Then it would make it difficult. If this is the stage they're at now, it would make it difficult for it to be released this year on that 6 to 9 month period. We've got the epic, not epic Horus Heresy stuff still to come. We've got the Cities of Sigmar release. Next year's Age of Sigmar next edition. Would they put Warhammer Fantasy Battle, Warhammer the Old World out in the same year? Don't know, might detract from it. That's I don't know how they'll play that. Maybe we'll see it early in the year. But Horus Heresy, if we look back, this is kind of the equivalent of when Horus Heresy released for 30k, right? So, and that came out in the autumn. So maybe there's a chance if this article is old. Anyway, there's my thoughts on it. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. Let me know why in the comments down below. And also in the comments down below, let me know what your thoughts are on what's in this development diary. But keep it calm. This is just a friendly discussion. As I say, no need to get heated right now because we don't really know much about the game. And if you want to see more content, please hit that subscribe button. It's free for you to do and means a lot for me. Keep an eye out for more content coming. And I'm also going to be doing a channel status and update video soon, just to let you know what is coming. There is more stuff to come, both on Warhammer the Old World, Total Warhammer. I know it's been very popular, and that is what I want to focus on. But there's not huge amounts of content for Warhammer the Old World, and I don't want to go too much into history. But we are going to look at doing some faction focuses on the units and stuff from the past, and as well as always other video games that I'm playing and live streaming. But there will be a channel video coming up for that, on what the future holds for the channel. And just to reinforce that, I will try and get these out as soon as they come out. However, I am limited by my work and my travel abroad. So please bear with me and stay with me. It will come out as soon as I can get it. And I say I'm working on maybe a solution that I can do when I am traveling abroad. Thanks for watching. You've been watching The Ghost Owl, and I'll see you very soon.